Well, greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome back to tonight's second half. Before we get into tonight's upload, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below, my merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe, click the like button, and please leave a comment. It really does help, and it does matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with tonight's second half. Shall we? Today's first encounter. About a year and a half ago, my girlfriend and I went down to the Ohio Pile State Park. Now we frequent there as we only live an hour away, and it's one of the best parks within a day's trip for us to hike, swim, mushroom hunt, and just explore in general. So one day we get bored of the normal hiking areas and places we have been. We decide to drive around the back roads deeper into the woods of the park. No map, just deciding which way to turn when we get to an intersection and going from there. We pass a random old cemetery that I remember, and it couldn't have been a mile or more down the road when we noticed another dirt/dilapidated road with a chain in front so cars could not get into it. So we decide to park and go explore the trail and the area in general. There were no signs for no trespassing, anything like that, so we continued in. I'll never forget that eerie feeling I had as soon as we made it onto the trail. Just a general sense of you should not be here. But I didn't listen. My girlfriend seemed intrigued, so no one's around at all. And it seems like a beautiful secluded area, so we head back some more, and we noticed up a cutoff, an abandoned visitor center. Obviously, we had to go and check it out. About 100 feet away from walking up to the building, that alarm in my head is going, "You shouldn't be here," has intensified immensely. But I was curious about the building still. My girlfriend at this time is freaking out internally. She wants to leave as she feels uneasy and unwelcome as well. I want to explore the building because I love abandoned places. In that time of walking up, I realized the woods had went silent. I didn't hear any bugs, no buzzing around, no chirps of birds, not even branches swaying in the wind. We get up to the building and my girlfriend is pleading that we go back, and I said, let's just take a step in. I'm approaching the stairs to the door from the left side, and no joke, straight out of a cheesy horror movie, a bird out of nowhere flies into the window of the building. And not 5 seconds later, I heard what sounded like either a log or a very large branch cracking on the other side of the building. And I'd like to clarify, there is no way it was a small branch or twig. It sounded almost like a tree breaking directly on the other side of the building. I pulled out my pistol and walked quickly backwards, facing the building, and told my girlfriend to walk as quickly and quietly as I could back to the car. We hopped in, left as quick as possible. Today's second encounter. My dad was in the United States Air Force, and after 25 years of service, he retired. We moved back to my mom's hometown in Madison County, North Carolina. Now, he was an always active guy. He'd walk every day to stay in shape, whether we were stationed near the beach or the forests. He would walk for miles, picking up trash or visiting with neighbors. We moved to a pretty rural area, but close enough to get to town in about 15 minutes. The area just had not been developed much. There were high power lines crisscrossing the area. My dad would walk along these clear-cut areas until he had a very bad experience. He didn't scare easily, but whatever he saw that day scared him and filled him with fear. This particular day was late August, early September, so it was still light after he had gotten home from work. Yeah, he worked after retiring from the Air Force. He worked until he was 65. After dinner, he decided to walk along the pole lines, something he had done for several years. He would always tell us in which direction he was going to go. He hadn't been gone for 90 minutes when he returned home, white as a sheet and very agitated. He told me and my sister that he didn't want us to walk along the power lines anymore, and he'd prefer that we didn't go beyond a certain point, about a quarter of a mile. Knowing him so well, we did not dare ask him about it. Sometime later, during the next day or so, he told us what he had seen. He had walked to where the power lines crossed a major highway and was walking back. He said that during the entire walk back, he felt like he was being watched. This area was and is all piney woods, no houses. At this time, he still smoked cigarettes. He stopped to light one up and turned around to block the wind. When he did this, he looked into the woods, and there was a tall, dark figure about 30 yards into the woods staring at him. The figure had red eyes, and when it snarled and growled at him, he saw yellow fangs. My dad said he felt evil filling the air. He was terrified. My dad always wore a gold cross on a chain that his mother had given him many years ago for protection. My dad put his hand on that cross and kept it there the whole while he walked home. He said the dark figure seemed to follow him, but never came out of the woods and never got any closer. When he had gotten about a quarter of a mile from the house, the dark figure just vanished. The air felt safe again. My dad doesn't scare easy. He was a Korean and Vietnam veteran, flew reconnaissance flights over enemy territory. But whatever he saw that evening visibly terrified him. He never walked that way again. There were 2 ponds on that property, and while we were always comfortable at the pond close to the front of the house, none of us really liked to go to the other smaller pond, which was close to the woods where my dad had saw that dark figure. He never saw the dark figure again, and always felt like he wasn't supposed to see it when he did, but did so by accident. 30 years ago, the property was sold to a developer. A large church has built and apartment complexes. But on the land, it's still undeveloped because it belongs to a utility company, and they have no urge of going walking into that cleared area. Today's third experience. Summer of 2013, when I was 13, I spent the summer in South Dakota with my uncle from mid-June to mid-August. During my time there, he and I had quite a few interesting adventures. Accidentally getting ourselves lost, being charged by a grizzly bear, driving home through a tornado. But this one is the one that I cannot stop thinking about. Toward the end of my stay, we decided we would go on one last hike. We had been hiking a few times beforehand, Yellowstone, etc., and figured we could squeeze in one more. He suggested going for a roughly 5 to 6 mile overnight camp hike in Cloud Peak Wilderness, Wyoming. When we got there, we hiked about 3 miles on the trail before he suggested going off trail for a little bit. At some point, we came across an opening that had medium-sized lakes. A waterfall, flat rock surface mixed with surrounding woods. We decided to set up camp there for the night, near the rock surface, but still on soft forest ground. We set up the tent, a small confined fire, and hung up our food supplies to avoid nosy creatures. During the night, we heard a variety of noises, from twigs snapping, owls hooting, and one of the scarier ones, wolves howling in the distance. My uncle brought his 5th-gen iPod, the first one that they were able to play videos and movies. He put on Star Wars: The New Hope. We're both people who can't sleep without background noise, and frankly, that background noise was hard to listen to. I fell asleep within 20 to 30 minutes of the movie starting. When I woke up, the movie was over. The screen was black, but it was still dark outside, so I didn't know what time it was. A couple minutes after waking up, I hear a loud clicking sound, fast and rhythmic, but not repetitive. It doesn't ever sound the same as the last phrase. My brain jumps to a woodpecker immediately, then I remember they don't peck at night. It seemed to be getting louder, my heart was beginning to race, and I was starting to freeze up. To my horror, the clicking sound started to multiply, now coming from every direction. Some were close, some sounded like they could have been miles away. From what I could make out, there were possibly 7 to 8 distinct areas where the sound was coming from. My uncle woke up in an uproar of sounds. He froze as soon as he sat up. His breathing became heavy, and he was... The only sound remaining being my breath in the breeze. My uncle and I just sat there, shocked for what felt like hours, but it was probably only 2 or 3 minutes. After we were able to gain some self-control, we decided the only thing to do was go back to sleep. Obviously, that was not happening, so I lied there for a couple of hours just listening to the still, silent atmosphere. Once morning broke, we packed up as fast as we could, not speaking a single word, and hiked back. We tried to remember the way in which we had gotten there, but for some reason nothing looked familiar. We berated each other with questions, trying to maybe spark a memory. Nothing worked, and we couldn't recall a single detail on our hikes beyond that point, being on the trail. We hiked for 6 hours, hoping that the direction we were heading was right. Eventually, we found some relief when we noticed the trail. We saw a trail sign that looked at it, trying to figure out where we were. We were confused when we noticed that we were still 2 miles from where we had parked. How? We'd been hiking for so long, still to be 2 miles away? We only planned a 5 to 6 mile hike. We got back to the car and drove home. Once more, we searched the area where we camped and actually were able to find it. What I don't understand was that it was 22 miles from where we had parked, and yet somehow we didn't remember anything about the hike. To this day, we don't really talk much about it. We have some sort of unspoken agreement, an arrangement that what happened was not normal, and I think we were still to this day trying to process it. This was still one of the most terrifying and strangest experiences in my life. Alright guys, I'm sorry I cannot record anymore tonight. I am physically and mentally drained. I've been staying up till almost 4 every night for the last 3 to 4 weeks, recording, interviewing, and just wiping myself out. Going to bed at 4, getting up earlier at like 8:30, working on my garden, getting 4 hours a night sleep for 1 month straight is just draining me. Taking a break tonight. Sorry about that. I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's short upload. And I want to thank everybody for the support for the channel and the support for Steph and him sharing what he knows on the channel. Super, very intelligent individual, super nice individual, and all around just it's a pleasure to have him on the channel. So thank you, and please stay well.